Hey everyone, welcome to the E-flite Turbo Timber Evolution. It's kind of a debrief, really. We've done a couple review videos, we've done some flight videos, but there's a couple topics that I did want to cover now that I have a lot more experience with this aircraft. I've flown it a bunch of times over the last few weeks, and now I got a really good feel for kind of my preferences on the aircraft. How does it compare to the original Turbo Timber, and a couple other things that may have been missed in some of the previous videos. So one of the first things I wanted to cover was actually on the tail here, on the horizontal stabilizer. Unfortunately, when I edited the video of the assembly, I accidentally cut out the portion where I put the wing spar into place. There is a wing, or there is a spar. It's not a wing spar. It's a rod that goes through the horizontal stabilizer, through the fuselage, and out the other side. And that got cut, unfortunately. So I wanted to cover that right away. So if you watched the assembly video and you thought I was missing something, you're right. That is true. To be a note, typically the spar that goes in the tail is a carbon fiber rod. Well, in the Turbo Timber Evolution, that rod is actually steel, or it's metal. So it's a lot heavier than what you are expecting. So if you thought that was part of the floats, you are wrong. It's actually the spar that goes in the horizontal stabilizer here. So just to let you guys know that if you're doing the assembly, make sure you put that in there. If not, you'll have a very floppy tail that's probably not going to work so well. So with that said, you say, well, why is it steel instead of carbon fiber? Well, some of that is to offset the large batteries that you can put in it. And I did have some questions on the batteries, so I did want to cover that again. You can put a 5,000 milliamp 4S battery inside here. So I'm actually going to put that in right now and demonstrate how well that fits so you guys can see. All right, so there we go. There is a 5,000 4S battery placed in the battery tray. As you can see, there's plenty of room around here for your fingers, for the straps. Now then, remember, this is not where the center of gravity is. I just want to demonstrate kind of where the battery can fit. The battery tray does extend all the way up to this front bulkhead here, and you can set the battery back. So if you're wondering if that battery will fit, the answer is yes. So yeah, that's the largest size battery that you could fit in the Timber. As you can see, no problem at all. There were some concerns about how big of a battery you could put in there. I have not flown with that battery yet. I have flown on a 4000 3S. I've flown on a 2200 4S and a 2200 3S. And as you can see, by putting this gigantic battery in, you guys got plenty of room for these smaller packs. In terms of my recommendation, based on my flight experience with the Turbo Timber Evolution, I do prefer 4S power, but I would probably look for something in the range of probably about a 3,300 to 4,000 size battery. I think that's probably the best trade-off in terms of flight time, performance, and weight. Not that you can't fly with this, obviously, but you're going to add a lot of weight to the aircraft. And for me, for my personal preference, I'd be looking for 4S powered, somewhere in that probably that 3,400 to 4,000 range, so like a 3,600 4S. That to me gives you probably the best balance of performance. And I do think as well that this plane, I think, reacts extremely well to 4S power. I love my original Timber on 3S. I think it's perfect on 3S. It flies exactly how I think it should. This one being modeled after a turboprop model, I do like the 4S battery just a little bit more. It gives you a little bit more grunt. It also sounds really cool with that 3-blade prop out there when you go whizzing by on 4S. And it just seems to me like if I wanted to fly a turboprop, that's the kind of performance I'd be looking for. And they got that out of the 4S. 3S is still an absolutely fantastic battery, no complaints at all about it. But if you want that turboprop style performance, then I think you're going to want to go to 4S. If you're a beginner pilot and this is your second aircraft or your third aircraft, stick with 3S. You can always go to 4S a little bit later, but I'd stick with 3S if you're more on the beginner scale. If you're intermediate on up, definitely go to 4S. If you're going to do a lot of aerobatics with the aircraft and really ring it out, or you want some maximum stall takeoff where you can go full flaps, mash the throttle, and get in the air, I think 4S is probably the way you're going to want to go. In terms of slow speed performance, slats versus no slats. So let me grab a slat here. So just like the original timber, the slats come removed. You can go ahead and install them. They go right here on the leading edge of the wing, and they do provide significantly more lift and also more slow speed performance. My original has the slats installed, and I decided on this one I would try it without. I'm going to see which one do I like better. As it turns out, I think I like the aircraft better without the slats. I like to come in on my landings with a little bit more airspeed, so it's kind of like not really a short takeoff and landing aircraft with me flying it, but I like to come in with a little bit more airspeed. I think my landings are much smoother, my rollouts are a little bit longer, so I actually like going without the slats, and I also go with less flap deflection than what the manual suggests. I find that with too much flap deflection for me, it slows the aircraft down too much, and instead of a nice gentle landing, it kind of just plops down. It's a little bit more difficult, at least for me, for my flying style, to get a really nice smooth landing when the aircraft is full flap with the slats on it. So my preference is to fly without the slats and a little bit less flap deflection than what the manual suggests. I also go with a 4-second deployment time, and I don't have any elevator mix on it. However, really with the timber, I think an elevator to flat mix is probably a pretty good idea. If you're new to flaps and you're not used to what speed you want to be going at and you're afraid the aircraft ballooning up, by all means follow the manual suggestion and program the elevator and flap mix. But like for me, I don't usually fly with it. I'm more comfortable without it, and I like my landings a little bit longer, a little bit faster, so less flap, no slats. And on takeoff, I'm not really big into the real short takeoff either. So, and at both ends of the stall spectrum there, short takeoff and landing, I actually go the other direction. I like a little bit longer of a takeoff and a longer of a landing. So for my personal preference, no slats is the way to go for me. If you are looking for more slow speed performance, you want to really get this thing as slow as possible, get it down to a crawl in the air, you're going to definitely want to use the slats, and you're definitely going to want to use as much of the flap deflection as in the manual. Also note that if you're going to go for a lot of low speed performance, you're going to also want to make sure that you got all your deflection on your control surfaces, aileron, elevator, rudder, because you're not going to have as much air moving over the surfaces. So if you're going slow, you're going to need all these surfaces moving to the most that they can go in order to get you to any type of control. For me, since I fly a little bit quicker with my civilian planes, I actually go with, I think I got 65% throw on the ailerons, and that's what I fly at. So it's lower than low rates, and that's where I find the aircraft flies how I like it. It's totally a personal preference for what you guys do, but if you're going to want to go for low speed performance, you want to go with more deflection on the control surfaces, more throw than what I usually fly with. I know that going into this, that my ailerons do not have as much throw as I will need for low speed performance, so I tend to avoid getting too slow. With my other timber, I struggle a little bit at low speed and having a good, comfortable feel for how the airplane reacts. So I went a little bit different setup on this aircraft. In terms of how well does it fly, it's a timber. It's incredibly stable. It really is. I flew in a terrible crosswind just recently, and the airplane did just fine. I have flown on calm nights, I've flown at dusk, I've flown in daylight, I've flown in a number of configurations, and it just amazes me every time, the stability of the timber platform. The Turbo Timber Evolution is just as stable as the original timber. I have never flown the Turbo Timber as a comparison, but I bet it's going to be exactly the same. You do get more performance out of the Evolution here with the 4S power than I have with my 3S powered original. Everybody should realize that's no big deal. The smaller diameter 3-bladed prop, you get a lot less grass clippings on it than I do with my my 2-blade on my original timber, so you don't have as much cleaning up to do. But overall, like I said, the aircraft is really, really well balanced. It's easy to fly. If you're looking for a second airplane, I highly suggest the Timber lineup. Maybe not the Timber X. That's obviously really geared more towards aerobatics. But I think the Turbo Timber Evolution is an absolutely fantastic second airplane. And if I were you, I would probably actually start off maybe without the slats and get used to the aircraft first, and then come back and decide if you want to go ahead and put these on. You can always do that later if you so choose, and get to more of that stall type performance out of the aircraft, which is really what it's designed to do. And if you're flying in a confined area, then by all means you're going to want all that low speed performance. You're going to want the slats on, and you're going to really want to make sure you can control the aircraft in a small environment. I fly at a club field that's located at an airport. We get a huge expanse of area to fly in, so I don't really need all that low speed performance that the Timber platform will give me. Navigation lights, of course, work absolutely phenomenal, just as they do on the original Timber. When you're coming in on final approach and you got the navigation lights pointing straight at you and the strobes out on the wingtips, it's totally cool. It's one of my favorite features of the Timber lineup. The one thing that we have not really touched on yet in any of the other videos is the floats. So let me go ahead and grab those. All right, so here we have the floats. They are assembled now, and they have this really nice splash guard that's on the leading edge here on towards the front. Otherwise, you got the metal construction here. You got and people have asked, how do the rudders steer? Well, there is a fishing line here that connects right to the rudder. And when the rudder turns, it actually go ahead and it moves the rudder as well. And these are spring loaded too. So if you end up kind of running up on the shore a little bit, these will pop up out of the way, and you won't have to worry about breaking them off. Another one of the features that we haven't really talked about very much on the Turbo Timber Evolution is reversing the prop. You'll need you'll need more channels. You need like a 7 or 8 channel receiver or transmitter to do that, and the instructions are out there on how to do that. In fact, my early copy of the instructions, I couldn't find it in there, so I looked at the Draco manual. It's in there as well, and it's actually a pretty simple setup. People ask, why do you want to reverse the prop? Well, if you are flying with the floats, reversing the prop is a wonderful thing, because I'll tell you what, I've flown on water a bunch of times. The other guys in my club have flown on water, and you'd always find something out in the water that snags the float, or it gets hung up, and you say, I really wish I could back the airplane up a little bit, turn, and then go on my way. And instead you have to go trudging out there into the water and rescue your airplane. The Turbo Timber Evolution, you can reverse the prop. So if you get in a situation on the water where you need to back it up, go ahead and reverse the prop and back the aircraft up and get on your way. With the wheels, you could do the same thing in the pits. If you want to back the aircraft up and then head out to the taxiway, you can do that as well. I see the bigger value actually on the water versus then on the ground with the reversing prop, just because of the fact that I've had to go out in the water before and rescue one of my airplanes because it's hung up on something that I wish I could have just put it in reverse and backed it up. So overall, final thoughts on the Turbo Timber Evolution is, well, it is a Timber, like I pointed out before. It is a fantastic, stable aircraft. It's suitable for beginners, intermediate, and experienced pilot. It has SAFE, it has AS3X, it has smart telemetry. You can get all sorts of data from the aircraft right down on your transmitter. It's really just an easy plane to fly, and it's a joy in the air. I have to say that now that I have flown this one and I have flown my original, I do have my preferences towards this one. And two of the biggest reasons for that, and it's not 4S power, it is it's the wire, the pin connection wires here that plug right into the fuselage here. That has made transporting the aircraft in the field assembly so much easier than the original. I used to hate dealing with the wings on my original one. I always dinged up the slats, and I had the wires I had to plug in. It was a mess. I love that. The fact that I could plug 2 wires in the back, run down the screws, and I am in the air. And the second one, of course, is the front battery hatch here. Wow, another one of those fantastic improvements. I can load batteries so quickly when I'm out there on the field. That is great. Yeah, they've upgraded the landing gear. They're beefier, and they're stronger, all that stuff. I never had any problem with the original one. I got a ton of flights on my original Timber, and I've got some flights that landed not so great, and I got some flights in some questionable areas that probably shouldn't be operating an RC plane from. And I'll tell you what, I've never had any issues with the landing gear, but they are beefed up. They are stronger on the Turbo Timber Evolution, just in case you were one of those that did have any trouble with it. And honestly, for a kind of a beginner second airplane, it's great to have a really durable set of landing gear because, yeah, you know, we don't get every single one of our landings perfect. So even as you get more experience, you still get some that aren't so perfect. So overall, great aircraft. Would I recommend buying it? Yeah, absolutely. If you had the original Timber, would it be worth upgrading to? For me, yes, I think it is. And like I pointed out, the ease of the connections of the wings, the top mounted battery, those things to me make transporting the airplane so much easier that I think that in itself is worth upgrading from the Turbo Timber and the original Timber right there. Performance-wise, I'm happy with it on 3S and 4S. I do prefer the 4S being the turboprop, but it's fine either way. I would definitely, if I was in the market for a STOL aircraft, this would definitely be on the top of the list. And if I had one of the early models and I was really getting tired of having to take the wings on and off to transport it, this would definitely be the perfect solution. So that wraps up pretty much my kind of final thoughts and overview on the Turbo Timber Evolution. If you guys got any questions at all on the aircraft, by all means, leave them in the comments below. I do have some more flight videos coming. Unfortunately, the weather has been absolutely dismal here in Michigan, where I haven't been able to get nearly as many flights in as I had hoped. So, but I will be working on getting some more of those, including some aerobatic flights with a club member behind the sticks on it, because I'm not the best at aerobatics. So, like I said, got any questions, leave in your comments below.